Hello and welcome to a new video on my channel. Today we are going to do my first video in English actually, because I think I've gained some viewers that do not quite understand German. And so today's video is going to be actually more in the direction of tutorials and Blender stuff, because my other videos aren't quite that up to date and I've changed my interests kinda. So I'm more into like 3D modeling for games and stuff. So yeah, today I'm just going to do a quick overview of how to model an object accurately in Blender and how to use Blender's functions, at least use like the most basic of them, just to get a rough understanding of how it works. So I'm using a Blender 2.8 version, so you might be having another interface. That depends on your version. You might even have another key map. That's why I'm not toggling on my keybinds. So you can unfortunately not see what I'm pressing right now, which keys I'm pressing, but that's just due to this feature being disabled with me right now, because it's like not of big use, because the key map depends on your setup and on your version. Because I'm even using the old 2.7 key map, because I've grown up using Blender 2.7. So 2.8's key map is kind of strange to me, so I've changed it back. You can actually choose between 3 presets, and one of them is the old preset. And because that's what I'm comfortable with and used to, I'm using that at the moment. So yeah, TLDR, I'm not using keybinds that you can see on here. So I'm just going to tell you what keys I'm pressing, and you can figure out what that translates to in your version. So if you start Blender up for the first time, you're going to see this cube, the camera, and at best the light source. You're going to need to delete, basically for modeling at first, the camera as well as the light. The default cube, you will need it, but you usually delete it just because, yeah, that's tradition. So you delete it and then you add it in afterwards again. That's just kind of something you do. I mean, the default cube is basically the most hated. It's like ironically the most hated thing in Blender. So yeah, you can keep it, but out of tradition I'll delete it and I'll add it in again. So if you want to model an object accurately, you need to usually have a reference image. That you can do by adding just a background image, and then you just, yeah, search for one. So I'm modeling a gun right now. So I'm actually going to look for my folders. That's gonna be right there, I think. Pictures, yeah, pictures. So what's it called? Quick overview, I don't really know what it's called. I'll just take this one, and we'll model a Glock, but we'll not model this Glock right now because I don't actually have the texture and I don't like applying image textures. So yeah, you'll just need to, because you added it in right at a different angle. I mean, if you were from the start looking at the viewport from this angle, you would have the picture set in at the right place, but like that you're going to have it kind of angled and offset. So you just reset all the coordinates right here, all the rotation values, and then you have your picture plain and flat on the ground. Now you need to rotate it in place so you can actually use it and model at the same time. There are 3 main operations that you can perform in the normal viewport mode and in every other mode as well. So that's G to move, R to rotate, and S to scale. And after having pressed the particular button, you can also press an axis button, so X, Y, or Z. So for example, you press G and then you press X. That restricts you to moving on the X-axis. The same thing's on with rotating. So if you press R and then press X, you're restricted to rotating on the X-axis. You can do that with each axis, so R on Z, R on Y, and G on Z, G on Y. Scale, you can scale on the X-axis. On the Y-axis, you can't scale on the Z-axis for a plane because a plane is 2-dimensional. So you don't really have any value to scale because, I mean, the height is 0. So 0 multiplied by some other value still results in 0. So you won't be able to scale on the vertical axis. With a plane, with every other object, it's going to be possible. So for example, the cube is going to be scalable on the Z-axis. those are the basic constraints that you have while modeling, and those apply to each of those actions, each of those operations, and in each window. So shading, we're gonna get to that later, but in the shading window, you're basically also going to use G, R, S, and then the different axis values. Correct. And even if you want to like set the size or scale or rotation to a certain value, you can just press your button, for example S for scale, and then you can press X for the axis you want to scale on, and then you can press, for example, 10. That scales it tenfold, so it's going to be 10 times as large on the x-axis. If you rotate, same thing. If you rotate on the y-axis, for example, and you enter 90, it's going to rotate your image, picture, object, whatever, by 90 degrees on the specified axis. So right, that's the basics. You can do that also with moving, so you can move 10 meters to the left just by pressing G, X, and then 10. And if you have like made a change like this, but you don't actually want to set it right there and want to reset the operation, you can just press right click. That's going to reset the object to its original state and going to ignore the operation you were conducting right then. And to accept the operation, you press left click. So then it stays right where you moved it. Nice. So to now start modeling, you rotate this on the x-axis. If you want to model from this view, you're going to rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees. That's going to turn it upright. Then you can press one of the numpad keys to turn your view orthogonal. So this is the normal perspective view. You see you've got like a central point and you've got kind of distortion. That's like the normal way people see things. And then you've got the orthogonal parallel view. That makes every line parallel. So you don't have any real depth. And this is more like for achieving exact sizes. So for example, if you want to have this side of the Glock right here have the exactly same size as the slide of a Glock right over there, you use the orthogonal view to be able to kind of appropriate the value better. But normally you use this view because it gives you a more real depiction of what your object actually would look like in real space. So now you've got the image, you've got your perspective view set up. So the numpad key 1 sets it so you look at it orthogonally, that's important, from the left side, 3 from the back, 7 from the top, and by pressing 9 after each operation, you can also like change the side. So it's going to be the exact opposite. For example, if you press 1 on the numpad and then press 9, it's gonna 1 and then 9, it's gonna look not from the left but from the right. If you press 3, so that's from the back, and then 9, it's gonna look at it from the front. And if you press 7 and then 9, it's gonna look at it from the bottom instead of the top. Yeah, those are the basic perspective actions. So at the start, we'll press 1 to center the view on the left side where our image is. So we're just going to start by adding a plane because I actually like modeling with planes first. And then you rotate the plane as well. R on X, 90. Scale it down and with G move it to the right place. And then you start to kind of retrace the form and the shape of the object you're trying to model. For example, the Glock is really rectangular, you could say, so it's not going to be as hard as some other pistol or some other object, more fluid and more soft shapes. They are going to be more work intensive, but you will have to model them in a different overlay anyway, so you'll basically use sculpting or subdivision surface modifiers. But as this is basically hard surface modeling and you've got really straight lines and sharp corners, sharp edges, you can use a plane to retrace it. So basically that's everything you need to do for the slide. If you want to hide an object temporarily, you can just press the I button up here. That's going to hide it from view only. So it's still going to be there, but you're just going to hide it from the view. But you cannot click it. so it's not going to be clickable because it's not, yeah, from this position it's not there anymore, but it's still up there. So now you just duplicate this plane, or you can add a new one. I like to duplicate it by pressing Shift D and then left click. That's going to move it right there. G on Z, sorry, it's going to move it down. Then you can start following the angles here as well. As the Glock's frame is incredibly rectangular as well, you'll have an easy time just following the points. But I like, for guns at least, and for pistols, I like to start with the outermost edge. So I'm kind of imagining myself to be like a 3D printer that prints layers. So I'll start with my with the most outside part of the model. I'll start at the most outside edge and the most, yeah, at this angle, the part that's most to the left of the center of the Glock. I'll start modeling that. And as that is the side of the frame, I'm just going to, yeah, retrace this line first. So then I'm going to press E to extrude a single vertice. You can also change the selection mode, and by that you can select edges, or you can select whole faces and extrude them. I'm working with vertices just because that's the most comfortable option to choose from. And in addition to that, you're going to have to remember the shortcut Control Z to undo an action. That's going to really be important in the future. So just press, for example, if you like extruded it but extruded it the wrong way, you can just press Control Z to undo that action. So nice, we have our vertice, and then we just extrude it along the lines. I'm not actually aiming for high poly modeling. I'm just doing some mid poly stuff that kind of looks realistic. So like CSGO model quality, you could say. A bit less, like between CS Source and CSGO. So you just start retracing this shape. And you also need to accommodate for like perspective related shape alterations. So for example, this isn't actually really going upwards, it's just because it's further in, and the Glock center is more like up and in the middle. In this picture, it's going to appear as if it was more upward oriented than in reality, because in reality this is straight. But I'm just gonna do like a compromise and put it that way. So nice. I'm just going to draw this line further, and always try to save vertices, so don't like overuse it, don't extrude too much, just do what's necessary for your style of modeling, because yeah, it's not going to really help you if you have too many vertices. Okay, practically I made a mistake there, because that actually goes like that. I am orienting myself at the shading, so the light part, the part that's more yeah, that's kind of more white and not as shaded. That's the part that's protruding the most. So that's the leftmost part, the object. And the shaded part, of course, is the centermost part of this object. So I'm retracing the not shaded side. And I'm just going to do it that way. Just going to kind of, yeah, trace it. This you can comfortably do as a straight line. And then you re-arrive at this point. You can just adapt this vertice a little to fit. Then you extrude it, extrude it, extrude it. And now, what do you do now? Okay, well, we're just gonna first delete this edge because we don't actually need it. Now, if you want to join those two edges, you'll click them both. So you click one with right click and the other with Shift right click, and then you'll press F to connect those. But we'll first draw this line, and now we'll connect it. I'll do this little dimple, this dent, I'll do it later. That's not really a dent, it's kind of like not really a serration in there. It's just a little dimple. That's where the, yeah, I guess that's the disassembly switch of the Glock. So that's kind of the part you press up, and then you can lift the slide of the gun. because it's a tilting Browning Petter SIG action, so a tilting barrel action. So you can basically remove the slide with the barrel assembly, unlike in a fixed barrel gun like a Walther PPK, where you actively have to press down the trigger guard. So release the barrel from the slide, release the barrel and the slide from the frame, then you can push back on the slide, lift it up, and pull it off this way. But this is a Glock, it's got a tilting barrel action, so you just remove barrel and slide altogether. And this is the switch to disconnect those parts from the frame. This is, by the way, the slide stop or the slide release, because it's kind of important. Why I'm telling you this, it's kind of important to understand the model you're doing. So it's not of much use to just see a picture and try to like remodel it. If you don't know what the button is doing, for example, you tend to like mismodel it and kind of yeah, miss the purpose of the object, and it's gonna look awkward if you don't know what you're doing. So I'm just gonna tell you what this is. Just if you want to model a gun, then take that as advice. This is a slide stop lever. This catches into this little serration, this little cutout in the slide. So this goes up, the follower of the magazine pushes it up on the last round, and this is going to hook into that and prevent the slide from going forward. So it's going to be locked back at this position. Yeah, and by pressing it down, you can manually release the slide. That's basically it. Those are just cross pins, like hollow pins, captive pins, I think you call them. So those aren't like screws or anything. This is the magazine release. I think it's pressed inwards and not slided to the left, although it kind of looks as if it were slided to the left. But it's got kind of serrations on there, you see, cutouts to make it more grippable and more ergonomic, as the grip does. It's got kind of those touch enhancing fields where you've got like little points, little dimples on there, where your hand's going to grip better than on a flat surface. This is going to be the trigger guard. It's going to be more inset than the frame, and that's our trigger with the trigger safety. So this is going to be this part that kind of sticks out. This little tongue is going to be in between two slices of the trigger. That's because you need to press it inwards with the trigger in order to even be able to push it back all the way. That's because otherwise this hook, as you see, will catch on the back of the trigger guard and you won't be able to move the trigger back. So you need to lift it out of position to move the trigger back. That's like the technical part of this. That's going to be, of course, your barrel. That's your front side, your back side. They aren't equal size. No, because that's the front side. It's going to go in between the back side from a perspective view. And those are serrations, cut serrations in the slide where you can grip better. So that's kind of the basic stuff you need to know when you model a Glock. This is a lanyard loop. There you can attach a lanyard and a just some sort of string so you don't lose your pistol. And this is the magazine heel. This is going to be as wide as the grip, and this is going to be the bottom, the closing tab on the magazine that's going to sit inside the grip, and inside going to protrude out to about there. So the follower can easily pick up the next round. But that's going to be on the inside, and we're not going to model that. So now we can actually start. If we now have this form, we can now take the whole thing. You need to select with Alt right click a whole edge loop, because this is actually not a, as you can see, this is not a not a real shape, not a how you say, it's not a face, yeah, it's just an edge loop because I deleted the face earlier. So you just collect all the edges, you just click them, and then you can press F to fill it in. Now you can take all of that, and by the way, I forgot to accurately set the height. That's kind of far down. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, so you take that, and then you can just go and extrude it. So you take the whole face, going to press E, it's going to automatically extrude the way the normals are facing, and then you just, if you got the right one, you need to remember that we are only making half the model. So we're going to duplicate it, mirror it alongside the central point in order to, do the other half. But it's better to model it this way because a gun is going to be mostly symmetrical, apart from the extractor side and the, what you call it, the ejection port on the other side that you don't see right now. You need to kind of approximate it a little bit. Apart from that, the gun is going to be mostly symmetrical. Of course, you're most often not going to have all the elements, all the little levers and stops and catches on the other side as well, but we can ignore that at first. So it's just, it's just a basic modeling tutorial. So if you've got the other side, you're going to basically enlarge it, kind of like that, just to have a different view of it. And then you're going to set this, no, just extrude it on this side. You're going to match those up with the outermost edges. That means that, yeah, this is kind of strange. I'm going to address that problem later on. But we're just going to retrace that line real fast, like that. And we need to actually include more points, as I see, because it's not actually sufficient. Okay, well, I'm gonna do it another way. I'm probably going to just, or am I going to do it? Yeah, I'm probably going to do it this way. So yeah, let's just move this up as well. This we're going to ignore for the second. So the inmost points are the ones at the outside. You just take them and move them over like that. Now just ignore the trigger guard at first. It's not going to be important now. Just take everything and we're just going to model up to this point because that's going to be a different area. Now if you want to align this vertex with this one, you need to turn on snapping and then turn on vertex snapping. And then if you press a G and X and then hover your mouse over this point, it's going to automatically align them. The same works for edges, so you can align this edge with this one, like that. And for faces as well, you can align this face out here with the one on the inside. Okay, so we're just gonna turn it off for a second, and then you have this. You're now going to align this corner, this edge, this side, exactly with the center of your build plate. So you just turn on edge snapping, I'd say, move it over to this side and then snap it. That's perfect. Don't worry about the depth of the object. We're going to go into more detail about that later on, but at the moment we're just going to do the basic shape. So here you need to as well kind of add more vertices in order to make the detail possible. So you're basically now going to try to nicely connect all the vertices so that it kind of makes sense. I'd say something like this would be fitting. And okay, now you've got this. As you see, this is too steep of an angle and the Glock is kind of rounded off. So, but at first, of course, we'll adapt this angle as well, because that does not really fit. So we're going to just move that inwards to about. Yeah, we're just going to snap that to exactly this vertex as well. And we're going to snap that to exactly this vertex in the, in terms of height as well. Yeah, that wasn't so intelligent because it always also snapped on the y-axis. No. Okay, now that's perfect. What you now need to do is to add another edge loop in between those two lines, this and this one, to add more detail. You can do this by pressing, well, at first I'm actually going to set this point down there up to there, just so we have more consistency in the shape of our faces. That's good. So now we're going to add a edge loop. So we just press Ctrl R, and this is going to add one for us. We'll just choose one at the moment and just click on it and then press right click. As you see, we kind of have a little problem there. That's because this wasn't like a valid edge, I think. So yeah, basically that's kind of shit. What we do to kind of help that, we just press K on one point and we knife cut up to this point. So we just construct like a artificial edge down there. Then we of course adapt it to fit this point. And we're going to delete this additional thing it did over there. It's going to, collect it like that, and I'm just going to pull it down. That's practical. Now we have this edge loop and we're going to round it off. To round it off, first you need to pull it outwards to kind of create a rounded shape. Of course, that's very basic rounding right there. This you cannot do just by looking at the picture. You need to kind of appropriate the shape and kind of guess where it goes. So yeah, no, not really. Like this, that should be better. You do the same on the front side. So choose all the edges and kind of pull it out a little bit. No, every edge apart from this one, because we're going to need it in this position. Okay, we're going to pull it out to about there. Yeah, that's good. But of course that's not very detailed, as we can see, so we're just going to select the edge loop again and press Ctrl B to bevel it. We're going to add 2 beveling steps at first in order to kind of make it more rounded. It's just gonna need to be rounded enough to look round if you shade it smooth. You can shade it smooth and then add an edge split modifier to pronounce some edges more than others. That's okay, that looks good. So now you can shade it flat again. Ignore the slide, I'll even delete it for the moment. And then you kind of need to better your shapes a little bit. So I'll just adapt it the way I think the gun looks in that position, that very place. So I'll just move them down, move them around a little bit till I think, yeah, this kind of fits what the gun looks like. And as I know the Glock is kind of more rounded and has this outwards angle back there, so I'm just gonna do it this way. Yeah, that's quite good actually. Now what we need to do is we need to, just because it's like that on the real Glock, we need to pull this edge and every other edge up to this one. Just because the distance between the smallest line, so the outmost line, and the innermost line is not as big up here as it is here. So this is the widest part of the frame, and this is the narrowest part. Up here this is basically the narrowest part, because all of those are going to be on one line. I'm going to show you. So just by pressing G, Z, and then actively aligning them, you get this. You need to adapt the edges over here a little bit so they fit as well. So just move all the edges over and the points as well. Just because this is already finished here, because in here you've got all the working parts of the gun, so there isn't going to be any frame in here, so the frame kind of ends here. So that's your narrowest part. Okay, nice. Now we can model the rest of the frame. This is going to be the spring guide, and it's going to house the guide rod for the recoil spring. So it's going to be a bit narrower, but it's still going to have enough place. We're just going to appropriate by putting a cube up to there and kind of adapting the cube's values and tweaking it a little bit, just so it seems at least to fit over there. I'll just do it this wide. That's gonna, I think that's gonna, oh, no, that's kind of narrow, I think. Maybe I need to make the whole thing. Okay, that, if you now would just like turn it smaller and scale it down on the y-axis, it's going to scale it down in this direction, and that's not going to be so useful because you want the innermost part to still line up with the center, so you can still mirror it. So you'll need to reset the pivoting point, because all actions are performed with the center as the pivoting point. Okay, so you press Ctrl A, all transforms, and that's going to reset your transforms and your pivot point to the cursor. That means if you now scale on the y-axis, it's going to push it more into the center. So I'm just going to scale it down a little bit, like the smallest bit, like that. And I'm just going to move this till it meets that line. You don't even need to snap it because it's not going to be important. You just, yeah, select it like that. That's going to fit, can guarantee. So, apart from that, what we have just seen means that this part here is further down. So I'd say the curvature starts here and ends there. This is not going to be curved at all. So we're just going to put it on the same height as this and pull this down a little bit to produce the curvature. That's going to be more practical because, as you can see, curvature starts here, but it ends already before this thing starts, so it's going to need to end before there. So yeah, that's going to be okay. Now we just need to kind of pull this thing down a little bit, and this is going to line up perfectly with this, and this is going to line up perfectly with that too. That means that you'll now have this stray edge that you'll need to kind of adapt a little bit. This stray edge needs to be adapted. Perfect. That's perfect. Is it? Is this still off? That's good. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, now we just not extrude it, but pull it up to here. Then we extrude it up to there. Now I'm actually working with a cube instead of a plane, but that's just because it's at the moment more convenient, because it's such a small space. Okay, what we now need to actually do is we need to integrate a Picatinny system into this. That means, okay, you know what we'll actually do first? We'll set this trait. So that's going to help us align the two better. Just set them straight. Do the same with these. just so they perfectly intersect. Then you've got a more straight space to work with. So you now add this little bevel, Control B, as I said already. You look how far the bevel goes, up to there, and now we need to pull this back to about here, because that's where this starts. Need to move it up there, and this is going to be pulled up there. We're going to add another cut by selecting the edges and then clicking subdivide. Like that, just like that. This is going to go in a little bit. Perfect. Okay, now we need to pull this in. You just, yeah, that's kind of the problem if your image isn't really high quality. You need to kind of look for shadows and all that, and it's not going to be as precise, but it's definitely, it's a good start. I'd recommend a higher, if you don't know the gun, if you like don't know how it works, or if you haven't controlled it yet or haven't handled it yet, you wouldn't probably know how to exactly put those. But I think out of my time seeing Glocks, I can, yeah, safely say that I about know how to model this. I wouldn't say I completely master it, but I could kind of, yeah, I could tell you how it looks, so it's going to be good. Now we just need to add this little cut there. Okay, and in addition to that, as we know, again, we need to pull this in a little bit. Just ever so slightly, because this actually, as I see, this goes in. So that's going to be kind of complicated, I see already. Yeah, that's going to be complicated. How are we going to do this? Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe this, we're going to pull it out. Yeah, I think, yeah, that works. That's perfect. We need to pull that out kind of a little bit. And then we can apply a Boolean modifier. So we just model this little serration. We just model it, add a cube, scale it. I'm now going to do something that's called speed modeling, because I don't actually need to explain all those steps. You'll know them by now. I'm just going to do it how I do it if I'm doing my models as well. So just make it kind of smaller, kind of scale down so that it fits. Okay, that fit the serration perfectly. That's going to, yeah, start there, that's good. You take this edge and kind of, yeah, make it a bit smaller, I'd say. Like that. To correctly represent the serration in there. Now you just apply the Boolean modifier, select this object, in our case cube001, just click apply, delete that, and now you've got yourself a perfect serration in there. Looks really wonderful, I know. So, kind of something I see that I messed up right now is that I didn't do it wide enough. It's because I didn't respect the angles, I think so, yeah. Now it should work. Boolean, cube, apply. Yeah, that's way better. So now we've got kind of this shape, and of course you're going to make those lines a bit more parallel, pull it out, that. And now we need to do this little serration. That's going to be the slot the Picatinny attachment actually attaches in. That's where the screw that's going to get tightened around this space on the attachment It's going to go through all the connector between the two sides. So you just add a cube, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it kinda goes outwards. So yeah, I'm just gonna take that boolean and cube. That's going to produce this perfect serration in there. We could smooth off or kind of round off the edges, but I think that's not going to work. If we look at, it's kind of working. I mean, let's do it just for the sake of, like appearance, just because it looks better. And for appearance, we could also kind of, no, we can't actually. I think we can't smooth this. No, we can't. I can only smooth this as far as I know. Yeah, that makes it already a bit better. This, a little bit. Okay, now we can also smooth this if we're already at it. But just a little bit, because, I mean, even though it's matte, this is polymer, I think. But even though it's polymer, it's a hard material, it's still not got like 90-degree angles, as you can see down here. It's got kind of a rounded off edge, so you'd maybe look to represent that here. That's going to make your model look a lot better. So just add a little, just a very little bevel on the edges. But we're going to do that at the, rather at the end. So nice, we've got that. Now what we need to do is actually, wait, what are we going to do next? I'm not going to do this line, and I think should I do that already? Yeah, I should probably do it already. So we'll just do the same spiel with a Boolean modifier. So just add a cube, appropriate the shape a little bit, try to retrace it, so that, yeah. Yeah, that's going to work, yeah. This, and then like that. You need to kind of rotate it all the time, but then it's going to be perfect. Okay, now you can apply this. Need to kind of move it to the right place, so about there, yeah. And it's going to be good, so just add the modifier, the cube. I think that's again cube 001 difference, and there we have our little cut in there. Perfect. It's just as easy as that. So now we can actually try and do the trigger guard. That's also going to be a plane that you're going to rotate on your x-axis. Going to scale down a little bit, and same process as always. Going to try to retrace it, but now I'll do it actually by starting with the inside. Yeah. No, I'll do it all the same thickness, but then I'll just bevel it off. Because the bevel is, yeah, unconsiderably small, so I'll just bevel it off. Okay, we can just move that up there so it hides out of view. Don't need to connect anything. Okay, then now move it back. Like that. Perfect. Now you can delete this face. Connect all these and make one giant face out of them. Perfect. As I see, we kind of have a problem there. So we're just going to extrude it like that. Perfect. And now we are going to take our model and appropriate the thickness. I'd say, yeah, up to that very line. That's going to be a good thickness for our trigger guard. So just enable snapping and snap it to that very line. That of course always means that we need to adapt the this side too, because it now doesn't fit anymore. Just move it up until it hides. That's going to solve it. Now we need to kind of bevel it just a little bit, so take all your edges. By the way, delete this edge. Edges are always going to be bad if you want to interconnect a face, so oh yeah, that's the other side. Faces are always bad, and edges in between faces if you want to bevel everything like simultaneously and uniform. So just make one giant face out of it, and then you can easily bevel everything. So yeah, just Control B and exclude faces that you don't need to bevel, because that's just going to create more faces that could possibly intersect with your wanted result. So just what's necessary and kind of bevel it. So that would be the good angle, I think. Now we need to add a little protrusion. So we just take our knife tool again and put it up to there, kind of like the shape and the point where this starts. So just extrude it. You could scale it. Do you need to actually scale it down? I don't think so, no. So just scale it down on X. And then that's basically going to be the shape. I'm still going to pull that in a little bit, because that would look the most natural to me, to be honest. So yeah. Yeah, that's going to be good. And because it's, yeah, better looking, I'll kind of bevel it off just a little bit. And this edge as well. So just take it, and the smallest bit of bevel does it. Perfect. Now, because it's easy, we're going to do the lanyard loop. For that, we literally just add a cube, rotate it a little bit, change its position, and just extrude it, and then scale it till it kinda represents and looks like a half circle. So probably something like that's going to do it best, yeah. Okay, now we need to, of course, yeah, set this to the center point. Boom. Lanyard loops are very thin, so it's just going to go, yeah, let's say to that. This is going to get a little Boolean modifier, no, not this one, that's going to get a little Boolean modifier, and we're going to modify it with a cylinder that we're just going to add from our cylinders, mesh, cylinder tab, and then just scale it down till it looks like the hole, and then just Boolean this. Good. And of course, as you know, secret ingredient is always a good bevel. You see, now we again have those useless faces that I don't want in there. So I'm just going to do it like this. And yeah, that's not going to work as intended. No, that doesn't seem okay. Oh, then just forget it. Sometimes you need to rationally think if you really need to do all that extra work, if that's really necessary. So sometimes just take the easier method. So okay, we've got that. Now we can bevel that, as you see. One stage of bevel should be enough. Then you can bevel this. Here too, one stage of bevel should be sufficient. That looks good. You can now, because bevel kinda makes the hole appear bigger, you can, oh, now we've got those problems, yeah, right. So, I think we'll just, no, it's got to do with this bevel, right? Oh fuck. Okay, we'll probably need to, yeah, look where that problem's coming from. Okay, we don't need this. Certain, okay, yeah, so I can literally just bevel it up to a certain point. That means, you know what, I'm just gonna... Now we need to take the hard method because it's just, it just does the job better then. I think I can now try to clean up and merge by distance. Doesn't work here. Sometimes this is really going to be helpful because you have double edges that you can't see because they're exactly at the same position. And if you then try to extrude something or bevel something, you're not going to get a bevel or an adequate extrusion at that point because those lines aren't just building like one object, one face, and you're maybe beveling the wrong edges. So there you always need to pay attention to your edges. So here, for example, you see you have double edges. Those aren't going to be detrimental, but yeah, as you see, there's a little edge that you have to, like an incredibly small edge there. And if you just forget it, you see, this little part, if you just forget it, you're not going to get the desired result. So let's try it now. Now it works. Okay, now let's bevel this a little bit. Only up to a certain point, because you can see here we've got a near intersection, so just up to that point. Then take all of this and bevel it as well. That looks good. And because a bevel makes a hole appear larger, just make the hole a little bit smaller on the inside. There, just, yeah, guess. Okay, that's nice. Now we're not going to do the magazine because we're doing the gun, and magazine isn't really a part of the gun. And yeah, so then we could actually already do the slide. I think that could be a good idea. Alright, first we're going to do this little pin, the captive pin, inside of this little dent, this little crevice in there. So you just make it like that and pull it out, and as always, bevel it. Perfect. So in firearms you'll nearly never find a screw. It's basically always going to be a captive pin or a hollow pin, or yeah, and if it's a screw, it's not going to be a Phillips screw, but a just a normal screw. Now let's just connect everything right here, because we actually need to mirror everything in a second. Just reset the origin by pressing Ctrl Shift Alt C, and then just do geometry so you can basically, yeah, like that. So perfect, perfect. Now we just need to do the little rest that's remaining. On here we're not, are we going to do this? Okay, basically that's going to be important. Now you need to imagine how you're going to do it, how you're going to approach this problem. You've got a little dimple in here, the little dent. That's where your thumb goes in, so you've got more grip and more stability. And out there, there's a little protrusion that caps this dent off from the lower part of the grip, so there you need to model that too. Okay, now you need to kind of imagine how it would look. Just retrace the shape and the overall appearance. Yeah, that's looking okay. Now make a cube out of that and pull the cube out. Make it a bit bigger, because you usually make everything smaller if you try to If the picture's like really pixelated, you usually make the things smaller than they need to be, so just scale it up a little bit. And then yeah, bevel this whole, not the whole thing, just bevel the outer edges. Because now we're going to apply a Boolean modifier again. As you probably could already imagine. Now we need to look where this starts. Seems to end there, so it's going to start there, it's going to be up there. Good. So we're going to make it a bit smaller in diameter, yeah. Okay, perfect. Now just add a Boolean modifier and boom, put the plane in. Now let's just hide the plane. Look if it's looking okay. Yeah, I don't like the way this is actually. Yeah, this should be okay. Wait, why is this like a straight edge? No problem, wait. I'll just take this edge and yeah, I already see kind of a inconsistency down there. Going to need to fix that. Going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so you've got that kind of dent in there. That's not final, so no worries. I know it looks kind of bad. So we're going to fix that right now. What we need to do is basically the inner parts are going to be more towards the inside. As you could probably already imagine. Of course, that's now very problematic with this irregular like shape of the lines and all that, of the intersecting points. So you need to. Now, if you want to make this line completely vertical, you can do that by pressing S for scaling, then pressing X and 0. By scaling on a certain axis on 0, you kind of reset the lines. Oh, it's only for lines. You kind of reset the line's rotation. So that's going to be a big help if you want to make something completely vertical. So this is going to be your the inside part. I think I know why it looks so big. It's because this line isn't far enough out. In general, I think the it's too big of a dent in there. Those need to be a bit smaller, I think. Yeah, a bit smaller should do them some justice. Yeah, that should be probably okay. So now you need to take this side. From the picture, I'd say take those four and extrude them. Yeah, that's what I'd do. Extrude them and extrude them on the y-axis. Then to make them all vertical, S on Y and then 0. And then you can make them, of course, smaller, but you want to make at first only those smaller. The other ones you'll probably want to do manually, because Blender can't do this as well as your eye can. Blender doesn't set the pivot point correctly. You could set the pivot point, no, not the pivot point, but the, yeah, it's kind of a pivot point, but not really. You can set that on here with individual origins. I'll hope we'll need it later on because it's going to be a really important feature. It's really cool. So we're going, yeah, that's basically how this looks. Yeah, that looks good. Well, that's actually not part of the, that doesn't seem to be part of the, okay, that means, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, that's not possible, but now I would have, under certain circumstances, joined the mesh with those lines, but I mean, the mesh already there, so you can't join anything. So I'm just going to do the bevel like this. I'm gonna select my points. I actually don't know what the... Wait, no, this point should be coming from there, right? Yeah. So, by having done that, you can now move those in order to achieve a bevel effect. Now you can either move those in or move those out, and I'd prefer moving those out. Those two. Yeah, that's gonna be helpful. So move them out a little bit to move this certain vertice out because you don't have enough space. And that's going to create this, that's going to create this, that's not, it's going to create this, bevel effect. Correct, so I'd actually still kind of adapt this because I don't really like it. Wait, is it even? No, it wasn't even like pulled inwards. It's bad. And I'll make them a little bit bigger, just a little bit, so I can bevel them. The question is, do I even want to bevel them? I already catch the glance at the one corner up there, and it doesn't seem to be that bevel friendly. Okay. Well, that's okay, I guess. Yeah, that's okay, I guess. Okay, now let's try to shade it smooth and add an edge split modifier. Okay, that looks kind of shit. If you ask me, that looks kind of shit. To be fair, but I'd even say it's okay. It could be worse, but yeah. Just going to remodel it a little bit because I don't like those sharp edges on there. Just press X and then faces to delete certain faces. Well, probably I'll just undo the bevel action, that's going to be easier. And I'm going to, I think what's going to help is pulling those further inwards, yeah. It's going to allow the smoothing, Blender smoothing to kind of smooth it better, okay. So about there, that's where we reach absolute smoothness. That's not what we want, so use a different method. We'll shade everything flat from the start, and we'll only select the different portions of the model that we want to smooth. I'm already recording for an hour or so, so I'm only going to model the frame and apply. Applying the texture is going to be the second part. So I'm just going to model the frame, and that's going to be the first part of this tutorial. Second part is then going to be how to model the slide, and third part is maybe going to be texturing. But that depends on how fast I'm done with the slide and all that. So yeah. This is a bit more work than having it auto smooth, but auto smoothing doesn't quite accommodate for all of your needs, and I don't want to select every edge in order to exclude it manually. So I'll just do it the other way around, yeah. Okay. Practical, yeah, let's do it like this. All of those as well. No, those. By clicking on the face of an edge loop, select this, you'll select the horizontal edge loop, and by clicking on an edge between two faces, you'll select this adjacent, not really adjacent, yeah, the orthogonal adjacent edge loop. But I want this one, so I click on the edge of this, and on the face of this, and on the face of this. Okay, that should be it. So I can shade that smooth, actually. That looks fucking bad. Fucking bad, like really bad. Okay, I'm gonna try auto smooth again. And I will reduce those to just a single edge. Guess that should be easier to handle. then two edges or a face in between. Yeah, that seems to look more normal than the rest did. Yeah, I think that works. Okay, good. So then I need to manually reconstruct this. Maybe now I'm going to, because I think that's a double edge right there because it's darker. I'm just going to merge by distance. It removed two, I don't know which ones, but probably, yeah, could be this one. So, okay, I'm now going to make those fit. Wait, what? Oh, I think, yeah, it looked like this. Quads like this, and wait, where was the triangle? Oh yeah, that was a quad probably. Okay, now we've got like only one edge in there. Can't guarantee that it's gonna look better or going to do its job better. And I also think that's more like this. Yeah, that looks a bit better. That's already more smooth and fits the general vibe better. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep it like that. Those parts are always the hardest ones, those soft corners and all that. But I think I'll still like change it up a little bit so it's not as hard on the eyes as that, because that's really annoying. Apart from that, this looks actually quite good at the moment. Okay, yeah, just to show you the array modifier, I'm going to do those. So I'm going to do them just by having a little block, because you've got like a whole lot of those points, those little pimples, so I'm just going to appropriate the shape of a half round object with this. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller and exactly this size. So now I need to guess. Okay. No, I actually don't need to guess, I need to calculate. What's the widest row we have right here? The widest row are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I can't read that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's the widest one. So we'll add an array. Constant offset, I'm going to put that to 1.5. I think that's a good value. And so we're going to put that to 14. The thing is that going to fit? Yeah, that's fitting. So now we need to add I could have done it here as well. Wait, no, that's the wrong direction. Oh no, we need to make two arrays. So apply this and make another array out of that. And I'm not going to count how many there are, I'm just going to rotate those in place already. And I'm gonna look. Okay. Uppermost line. Going to need an array of about. You always look for the largest line and then for the smallest one, because you need all of those. You can delete the unnecessary ones, but you can't like just add them later on, because that's not going to put them in the exact position they're needed in. So now you just apply and you delete the ones that are actually not there. So that would be everyone starting from there, those starting from there. All that's gonna get just deleted. So with L, you select each one, then you delete vertices. And then on here, all the ones that don't actually are there really get deleted, like that. I'm not going to do them on the back because they're going to be harder. I could do that, but that's kind of more experienced stuff, so I'll show that to you later on some other time. I'm just going to move them out of the way to look where they... Okay, so I think we don't have one, right? Yeah, the last one is there, so All of those are gonna go. They need to go. Dismissed. And this whole column is superficial. So now we can move this exactly to the place it needs to be, so about there. And that's going to produce this look, what we actually want. So that's how this looks. Nice. Okay, I think we are pretty close to being able to mirror this already. I'm just going to add the magazine release button real quick. It's gonna be about this size. Now that the actual hole for it is going to be bigger. So just no, you can't really rotate and scale you can't really scale something if it's rotated strangely, so I need to kind of adapt the rotation, and I need to kind of adapt its position because I kinda failed it with this inset thing here. Okay, I'm just gonna do it like that. I'm not gonna apply the edge split modifier because it creates a lot. It creates a double edge everywhere where you want to have a sharp corner. It creates a double edge. That's how the edge split works. It generally smoothes everything out, but it splits every edge into two, so that it's impossible for Blender to smooth out some edges that are not connected. So it can't just smooth out, like if this is a double edge, for example. It can't smooth out a double edge. That's impossible because it doesn't have any information on whether they are connected or not. I mean, it has information. It knows that they are not connected, so it can't do anything. Yeah, so we now made a boolean right there. That's a horribly small position for a horribly small spot for a magazine release. But well, I think it's gonna need to work. I'm just gonna do a small magazine release then. Okay, so the magazine release is gonna be this. No, yeah, that's wide probably. I'm just gonna keep it, I think, this size. Then I'm gonna just try to recreate its structure. Have a lot of little serrations in there. Now, if we want to each make them smaller, if we try to scale like them on the x-axis, they all move towards a center point. So we set the pivot point to individual origins. Now each one of them gets smaller around its own pivot point. That's something that's very useful. So that's something you need to remember. Yeah, and why the fuck didn't I actually... Okay, yeah, because you need to do that separately, I think. Now we take every second one, and now we can move them out and use individual origins in order to create the serration. Yeah, that's basically how it works. Now we just make this a bit more round, I think, and move it there. Yeah, that's a good place for it, I think. Now we can take this and move it a bit so it doesn't interfere, and kind of bevel it so it doesn't appear as out of place as it does. So yeah, about that. It's going to look good. I know I kind of fucked it up with its size, but that's okay. Kind of like that, yeah. Okay, a bit more in, it's too far out, definitely. That's going to be part of the gun, but I'm not going to add it because it's only one-sided and I don't want it to be mirrored later on. Perfect. Yeah, that looks quite good. I'd really want to bevel this if that would be possible. Well, is it? No, it's not. Too many stuff inside of there in order to bevel it correctly. Yeah, that just happens at some point when you're making models. Just everything gets so complicated that you can't use every function anymore. Well, I think I've now actually showed you everything that's really important for modeling, so I'm just gonna duplicate it at that point. And I'm gonna add everything that's one-sided later on. So I'm just gonna add a modifier, the mirror modifier, mirror on the y-axis, and that makes our Glock big and fat like this. Now we see everything we've done wrong, basically. So yeah, the Glock's a bit wide, to say it like that. And that's in and on itself, it's not really a problem. But yeah, I'll probably pull this out further, because that really goes out further, I think. Wait, does this just go out further, or is this just too big? That's the question right now. No, I want everything but that. If you want to deselect just certain faces, you just press Shift. And then, or C and then Shift and click. With C, you can like just mass select faces that are inside this circle. So you just press C and Shift, click to deselect all of those. Don't want any of those faces in there, okay. Now we are going to, okay, it's not centered around a pivot point. Why isn't it? Did we do it this way? Wait, why doesn't it center around the 3D cursor? That's better. So, but I need to take those into account as well. And I need to just hold L and try to like select all of those somehow. But I'll just press Z and then Z, that's gonna surely select all the faces, as you can see. I think now everything that's necessary has been selected. And I can successfully... Oh wait, why are those selected too? With Z, if you have Z on, so the transparent mode, then you can actually select something that's on the other side of the model as well. That's useful for mass selection. Oh, and yeah, this actually really seems to be part of the... Well, no problem. I'm just gonna make it a bit smaller, like just like that. Yeah, that's way better. Didn't hurt the pistol, I think. Yeah, that's good. And now we need to pull this back to its original length. Only those few lines. That's what happens if you don't really have all the reference images you need. Then you need to kinda, resolve some dumb problems. But I mean, this kind of dumb problem is rather easy to solve, so yeah, just extrude it to cover up this little patch. And then I'd even say, yeah, move those over. Perfect. Now it looks good again, I think. So let's now mirror this whole thing. Okay, that already looks way better. That's already more. Yeah, that's close to Glock. Now we see where we have our little problems. For example, here, for some reason, I don't know why on earth, but it appears to actually go inward at that point. That's not something we actually want. So yeah, we're just going to pull it out a little bit, and we're just going to align every point on there with the outermost point. Okay, that seems to work. Yeah. Just this one that's hidden below the lanyard also needs to... Oh yeah, this one apparently goes in already as well. So yeah. Okay, no, nothing good. That's good, okay. Yeah, that's nice. Now we still need to change this up because that's way too steep of an angle. This is really rounded off at the back here, so it's rather going to be something like... Even that's incredibly steep over there. So probably, you know what, I'll add another cut. Those cuts are really helpful, actually, so I recommend using them all the time. That's still not quite perfect. It's not really round. It still has those strange edges. That's more round, definitely. Okay, we'll have to put... No, we'll put this back on median point and set it to... Wait, why doesn't it work? Oh yeah, I've got my caps lock on. Okay, that should pretty much cover the back side of the Glock. Yeah, that's pretty good. So the back side is done, the side is done, everything else is done as well. Those edges are all going to disappear later on, so no worries. I can add another bevel just to make it even smoother. Could be helpful. Just add another one here. That's good. Bevel this as well, I think. Just a little bit. Yeah, that's good. And bevel this. Twice. Perfect. This one as well. As well as this one. This one. And apart from that, I think that's been everything, yeah. So I think the... Oh, well, wait, where is it? No, okay. The first part of our Glock, I'll call it tutorial in quotation marks because it's... Yeah, it could have been done better, but it was just like to show off the basic features. In the next part of the tutorial we are going to continue by doing the slide and the sides and also focusing more on looking at it from a back and front angle, and we'll look into texturing. I don't know if we're actually going to do that just in the next part, but yeah, okay. We are going to do texturing in the next part as well. So until then, yeah, I know I talked a lot, but I hope you could actually learn something and you still kept something in mind. And maybe it inspired you to become a Blender 3D designer as well, so yeah, cheers to whoever watched until the end, and yeah, goodbye.